Hi, welcome to Using Blackboard Goals and Alignments. My name is Stephanie Richter. I'm the Instructional Technology Coordinator with the Faculty Development and Instructional Design Center at Northern Illinois University. For those of you here live and those of you watching the archive, I'm going to apologize for my voice. It is a little rough today, but we'll make it through. I have water. I may pause occasionally. I'll try to mute it before I cough in all of your ears. So the Blackboard Goals and Alignments feature was something new that we gained access to when we upgraded to 9.1 Service Pack 8. It used to be part of a separate Blackboard offering that required an additional license, and we did not have that here at NIU. Many campuses have had it and have found great success. We are just grateful that we get even this little piece of it here at NIU now. Before we get into the technical side of things, I want to just briefly discuss the idea of aligning content in general. So from a design standpoint, what we're really trying to do is use standards that come from a variety of sources and align those with the course objectives so that we make sure we're meeting those standards. And then from those course objectives, we can design our content and our assessments to align with those objectives, with the goal eventually being that our assessments then can support that we have accomplished the standards. Sometimes this is a matter of outside evaluation. We have an accrediting body who's looking at the program to make sure that it's meeting these standards. Sometimes it's a matter of making sure that our students are prepared for their certification and their accrediting bodies. And sometimes it's just a matter of ensuring quality and making sure that we are accomplishing our aims, our goals. So where do the standards come from? Quite a few come from accrediting bodies, like we've already in the text chat we've discussed NCATE some. Some of them are certification. We'll take a look. We have the Illinois Teacher Preparation Standards, for example, that Illinois teachers have to meet in order to be certified. And then others can come from other professional organizations that, again, might be giving your program a stamp of approval or might be advising what your students accomplish. I should also point out that here at NIU, we do have a set of standards, effectively, outcomes we call them, for our baccalaureate degree programs. And moving forward, there's a strong preference that general education courses align themselves to these outcomes. Again, we'll take a look at those in a moment. Blackboard does have some goal sets currently available. As you can see, they are somewhat limited. We do have the Illinois standards from, well, 6 different sources. The assessment framework, the Common Core standards, the early learning standards, the Illinois professional teaching standards, learning standards, and performance descriptors. I will admit to not being an expert on these, but it does appear that the learning standards in particular are rather old, and from what I've heard, the Common Core standards are becoming more common in K-12 education. The NCATE professional standards for accreditation below certainly apply to the College of Education. And I will say we are investigating the creation of a tool that would help us create more sets. Right now, the limiting factor is that these goal sets have to be manually created by a Blackboard administrator, which is a time-consuming process, or they have to be provided by the partner organization. So here, for example, Blackboard partnered with the 50 states in the US here to get the state standards for each state available in Blackboard. And NCATE, in particular, partnered with Blackboard themselves and made this set of standards available. So I imagine moving forward that other organizations will do the same, or as I said, we're trying to create some sort of a tool that would let you put together the standard sets that you would need and make those available so that they're it's more time-consuming for the Blackboard administrator over in ITS to actually load these into the Blackboard system. There is no way right now for individual faculty or assessment coordinators to enter new goals into the Blackboard system. So now I'm going to turn it over to you for a few moments while I get some water and take a break on my voice. Using your microphone or the text chat, I know we already had a few, but I just want to make sure that we gather, if there were any that we missed, what standards you currently use for assessment purposes and what standards you would like to use within Blackboard. Okay, I'm going to take notes here on the slide as they come in. So we have resounding NCATE. Give me a second while I customize this some, so that should show up now. We have NCATE, and I saw IPTS. And ACT maybe? Teresa, go ahead. You can click the talk button to turn on your microphone.
Yes, I wanted you to note that CACREP, which was noted what it stood for, is for counseling programs. That was already include that as a standard.
Yes, I will add that on here as well, CACREP. Like I said, this sort of gets us as a group, and like I said, since we're working with ITS on this, gets us a sense from the start as to what sort of programs might be the most beneficial. I wish I could get those text boxes to turn off. Did I gather all of them now? Teresa, I'm going to remind you, I'm picking up some background noise. You can click talk again to turn your microphone off in the meantime. There we go. Otherwise, your phone will ring and we'll get to hear your conversation. I'll add ISPI for Janet. Good. So it's not so many. We were a little concerned, I think, that the floodgates would pour in with, tons and tons of requests. So this gives us a sense of, in getting started, in testing the system out, some of the standard sets that we might want to work from. I'm talking about phones ringing. Mine's the one that rings. Go figure. Okay, so that's some really good information for us to have. I know that others on campus from other departments and other colleges would have their own sets, but that gives me an idea of some of the ones to look at. So now we're going to go into the experimental app share portion of this. Let me put up my browser, so you should be seeing a Blackboard course. What I want to walk through here is actually a demonstration of how this alignment tool works. I'm going to increase the size on this, and I'm going to move the chat here out of the way so I can still see what you're saying, but without it popping up in the middle of the demo here. Okay, so now that that little bit of adjustment is over, I think we have a solid set here. So adding alignments is actually fairly simple as processes go, but there's a lot of depth to what you can do with it. To add an alignment to an item, here in Blackboard I happen to have an assignment, this global culture report, and I want to add an alignment to it. So all you have to do is click the action link. If you aren't aware, that's what that little round button with a down arrow is called. And they appear when you roll over an item in Blackboard. You mouse over it. And in that menu is a link for Add Alignments. That will open a new window here. And in this pop-up window, I can go through and find all of the goals that I'm interested in. As you can see right now at the far left, we have this Browse Criteria window that gives us a filter, really, so that we can find just the goals and objectives, the standards that we're interested in. Again, here the key is that these have to be preloaded into Blackboard, and they have to be preloaded by an administrator. So we have the accreditation standards from NCATE, we have the Illinois state goals, and we have a section for system, which is where all of the administratively created goals appear. For this global culture assignment, I'm going to go straight to the system goals, which filters a different set. And I can actually filter further, but this is a small set of goals. So I now have them all on one page here. And I can choose which of these 8 goals that I'm interested in. So I'm going to choose just a few. We'll do 3 of them. A, C, and E. Again, these are from the NIU Baccalaureate outcomes that were just recently revised, and they are now available in Blackboard to any individual across campus. So once I've selected these 3, I can review my selections. At the bottom where it says selected goals and shows me 3, I can open this tray and see the 3 that I've selected. Obviously, I can see the 3 in the window for this small of a set. It's not a terribly powerful tool, but if I had to switch between pages, if I was looking at more of these goals, or perhaps different sets of goals, this is a nice way to be able to review those. I can open it again if I click the window to see the goal details. I can remove a goal if I've changed my mind by clicking the red X. And when I'm done, I can click Submit. So that's all that there is to it, in fact, in terms of creating these alignments. Now I can remove the goal from here if I don't want that goal aligned to this item. The next option, this circle with a slash, is student visibility. So I have the choice of whether or not I want this goal to be visible so students can see it. If I click on that icon, now I can change the visibility to on, and it's a check mark instead of the no symbol, and students can see it. So just as a backup, I want to show you this is a student view. I believe I need to adjust my sharing. So just a moment while I make that change. There we are. So now here I have a student view of the course, and I wanted to show you that if I go to the assessments area where that item was, here I actually can see those 2 goals because I made them visible. On quiz 6, I had 2 goals before, but only one of them was visible to students, so only one is actually visible here. I'd also like to point out from a student's perspective, you can also view the goals for assignments or other assessments like tests in My Grades. If I go to My Grades, then for this Global Culture Report, I can open the alignments and see what standards this particular item aligned to. And again, for quiz 6, even though there are 2 alignments, only one is visible. So there's only one goal here visible to students. I'm going to switch back now to the instructor view. And we'll go a little bit more in depth into these alignments. You can, in Blackboard, you can align just about any bit of content. So for example, if I click on information, I can show you that I have added alignments to a file. This is actually an item, is the content type in Blackboard. And you do that the same way with this drop-down. You can add alignments. The rubrics is a folder where I've placed several course rubrics, actually. And I can add alignments here as well. Now, this doesn't change the alignments for anything that goes into the folder. It's for the folder in general. But I can align a folder. I can also align other content types like, excuse me, I'm going to cough. Okay, like files. In addition to items, you can add alignments to learning modules or lesson plans. And you can add them to other assessment types as well. In addition to the assignment, you could add them to a blog, a wiki, a journal, or a discussion board, and have all of those linked as assignments. If I go back to the assessments for a moment, another, I think, really powerful trick is on a quiz or a test, you can add alignments to the test as a whole, or you can add alignments to the individual test questions. So I'm going to actually go in and edit this test. And here at the top, I can see the goals for the entire test. Or I can go to one test question and add alignments to it as well. This time, I want to show you one of the larger sets. So if I go into Illinois as a source. Now, these are the Illinois state standards. And you may notice that here at the top, there are 400 pages of Illinois state goals. That's a lot of goals. And so I think a good recommendation is for you to work on these alignments outside of the system first. Be aware of what outcomes you actually want to have aligned first. Because if you're searching through in the system to decide which goals to use, there's just a lot to dig through. But here in the picker, I want to show that you can narrow your search. So for example, if I wanted to look at only the Illinois Professional Teaching Standards, I could select that. I can open this goal set, and I can narrow even further. So I can look at just the music goal set out of the Illinois Professional Teaching Standards. Now I've narrowed myself down to only 7 pages, and I can actually go even further. Depending on how the goal set is set up, there may be a category that you can narrow, or a goal type. So I can select standards, for example, and here I have the 5 primary standards that fall within the music category of the Illinois Professional Teaching Standards. So these are very nested. And if I open the details for Goal 1, that gives me all of what are called the child outcomes for that large goal. So within Standard 1, there are actually 8 substandards, and I could select multiples of these from this view. I can also, if I back up and look at more of them, I can also, here at the bottom, click Show All, which would put all of the standards and substandards here on one page. So again, I can look at all of them from 1 and 2 and 3, etc. in one location. I want to point out that there are a few idiosyncrasies with the way these are displayed. You may notice that I can select Goal 1A, 1, but not 1A and not 1 on its own. And that's because these have child goals. So rather than selecting 1A in general, you would be better served by selecting the individual goals here. So rather than choosing 1, I would choose 1A or 1B. And actually, because 1A has subsets as well, I would choose the specific goals I'm interested in. Jenny, I see you have a question. Can you add alignments from multiple goal sets? Yes, as long as those goals are all in the system, you can add more from more than one set. So here I'm working with Illinois as the source and the Illinois Professional Teaching Standards. But I could also switch to the NCATE accreditation standards. And I'm going to show all again at the very bottom. So I have them all on one page. And I can go ahead and add a few of these as well. So if I open my tray to review my goals, you can see that I have 1, 2, 3, 4 from the Illinois standards, but then I also have 2 from the NCATE accreditation standards. So yes, absolutely, you can have more than one type. So I'm going to click Submit here, and now all of those have been added to that one quiz question. Generally speaking, on a test question, it's unlikely that you would have 6 standards for the same question. But here, as a matter of demonstration, I think it's useful to see that you can have multiple goals and you can have them from multiple sets. I may even, depending on the purpose of the different goal sets, that may determine which ones I want students to see and which ones I don't want them to see. If you show these standards on a test question, they are visible when the student goes to take the test question, so it may give away some answers depending on how the question is worded and what content the standard has. You may not want students on a test question to see those at all. But you can, again, by individual goals, select what is visible and what isn't. And you may also notice that the goals that I chose for that question are separate from the ones that I chose for the whole test. Again, I don't know that in most applications, if you have a goal aligned to a particular test question, that same goal would apply to the whole test. You wouldn't have a test goal that probably isn't addressed by a single question. But that is a possibility with the way that Blackboard has set up this tool. So if you do need that flexibility, that is absolutely available to you. Now, if you want to review these, which standards and goals have been aligned to the test, within the assessments area, I can see the goals for this test. But I want to point out one other way that you can view the outcomes for assessment items. The only way to view the outcomes individually for a content item is to view that content item wherever it is in the course. However, for these assessment items, I can also view the alignments in the Grade Center. So here's the Grade Center. No worries about student data. These are all fake students. But I can scroll over to where I have the global culture assignment. And again, if I click that drop down, I have an option to view and add alignments. So from here, I can review the alignments for that item, and I could even add additional ones. This is true for any item in the Grade Center. And I believe if I create a sample column here, we'll call it participation for now, I can add alignments to a single column as well. So now my column is all the way here at the right. And even though that column is not tied to a Blackboard assessment item, it isn't going to have something that students submit through Blackboard, I can add alignments to that column as well. So again, a great deal of flexibility in how these work. And then finally, for the quiz, since we were talking about quiz questions, right, and adding alignments, I can view and add alignments. And here, we only see the 2 that were for the entire quiz. If I want to view them question by question, I can view the attempt statistics. That will show me how students have responded. Unfortunately, no one has yet completed this. That was an oversight on my part, and one that I will quickly fix. Give me just a second, and I will submit a student's quiz for this. The student won't do very well, but there will at least be a submission. Okay. So now if I review those attempts again, I can see the questions from the test, and I can see those alignments for each question. So again, in order to see these responses and how the outcomes aligned to those questions, I have to view the attempt statistics for the test. Otherwise, overall, what I see are if I use the View Add Alignments from the Grade Center, I see the alignments for the entire test, not for the individual questions. I see we have another question from Isabel. Wouldn't showing the goals be distracting to the student taking the test? I agree. However, again, depending on your use, there might be a situation where you would want them to see those. I think for teacher preparation candidates, when you're really trying to drive home to them the alignment between standards and course objectives and content and then assessment, it might be beneficial at least once to show them that so that they can see how that alignment fits together. Generally though, in a course that doesn't have standards as part of the content, I probably would not show it to them because, again, that's one more way to distract them from what they should be focusing on, which is the actual test content. Yes, Teresa, go ahead.
Just for one for clarification, it appears that goals and standards are used interchangeably. And the second question is, okay, it looks like there's some feasibility for being able to evaluate a student on a particular goal. And that's what we need for our accreditation body. We need to know how well the student has met a particular goal.
Okay, a little bit of clarification. Yes, right now I am using goals and standards kind of interchangeably, with the realization, of course, that they are two very different things. But within Blackboard, all of these are called goals. So whether they are accreditation standards or professional standards or like your baccalaureate goals, the learning outcomes, they have separate nomenclature outside of Blackboard, but within Blackboard, they're all, the tool is called goals. So I think it's a little bit of a inside-outside nomenclature, realizing that absolutely these are all different things, and course goals are not the same as course objectives and are certainly not the same as professional or accreditation standards. However, like I said, within Blackboard, I'm trying to use the Blackboard nomenclature as much as possible to try to bridge that gap. So your second question about looking at the student performance is actually one that I will get to. We'll get there. Can I put you off for a little bit?
Sure.
Okay. We'll come back to it, and if I don't cover it adequately, be sure, please, to ask that again at the end. So then the last thing that I want to point out is actually not a current feature, but it's one that is on Blackboard's roadmap. So there's a tool that you may or may not be familiar with called rubrics. And again, this is a fairly new tool, but it allows you to build a rubric. Let me open this to edit the rubric with various levels of performance. Here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and several different criteria. Again, you can create multiple types of rubrics. This one happens to be a percentage rubric, but there are points and point range that you can use as well. So in this case, what I'd like to point out is that in the future, on the roadmap for Blackboard, is to create an alignment for rubrics as well, with the idea being that you could align individual rows on a rubric with those alignments, with the goals that are loaded into Blackboard. And then each row could have one or multiple alignments and could then evaluate against those standards when you apply this rubric to a course assignment. Again, this feature is not currently available, and I have no timeline as to when it would be, but I wanted to point out that this is on Blackboard's radar, sort of on their roadmap for something that they want to introduce into the Blackboard system. Really just an extension on both the current rubric tool and the current alignments. So now, Teresa, your question a little bit on the performance, particularly student performance. You can run two different reports about the goals and about their alignments. Those are in the control panel under Evaluation and Course Reports. if you aren't familiar with course reports in general, these can provide a detailed look at really student progress and student use of Blackboard. So you can look and see how many students have accessed a particular area of your course, how many went to the assessments area, what day did they go, how many times did each student go to that area, and really get a sense of student effort, I guess, how much they've been accessing the course. It doesn't tell you how seriously they're taking it or how diligently, but you can get more of that information through these reports. There are two that actually refer specifically to goals and alignments, and those are the course coverage report and the course performance report. The descriptions here, I think, really say it all. The course coverage report will show you how the alignments are distributed across your course, which outcomes, goals, standards are you using, and what are they aligned to, as well as what aren't you using. So if you're, for example, using some of the baccalaureate learning outcomes in your course, you can also see which learning outcomes weren't covered. The course performance is what will show you how the students in your course are actually doing against those goals. And the course performance report really only will measure the outcomes that are aligned with anything in the Grade Center. So that could be an assignment, let's see here, assignment, test, survey doesn't have a quantifiable grade. It's more just the results. So really an assignment, a test, or a graded wiki, blog, discussion board, journal. And when you run this report, I can show you the data screen. It will ask you to select a goal set and to provide a target performance level. So this would be if you wanted them to have a certain score or a certain level to be deemed passing for that outcome. And then this will give you, as it says here, a variety of things. It will give you an average for the entire course, as well as breakdowns for the individual students and each goal that you choose from the goal set. Unfortunately, for both of these reports, we currently have a help ticket into Blackboard because there's a bug. Theoretically, I should be able to, for this goal set, have a drop-down and choose which goal set I actually want to run this report against. And we found that that's not true. So as long as this none is in place, you cannot run the report. If I click submit, which I will, I receive an error saying that I have to specify a value for goal set. So as I said, we've reported this to Blackboard. They are currently working on a patch to fix this. So we are hoping that in the next few weeks we'll have a solution for this, because this is supposed to work and it is not. So there's my bad news for you, Teresa, where yes, you can theoretically see how a student is performing against a particular goal, and it will compile all of the data from any assessment that is aligned to that goal. Unfortunately, right now, I can't demonstrate that for you. So I know that's not terribly satisfactory, but I can tell you the functionality is built into Blackboard. It's just not working. So once that becomes available, then you can actually get some value out of the course coverage report or the course performance. They both have that same flaw right now. Pardon me. So that was everything that I wanted to show you as a demonstration. Let's move back into Blackboard, and I will skip ahead a little bit. Deb, I'm sorry I didn't catch your question before. It will not tell you how long they had a particular content piece open, but it would tell you how long they had logged in for, if that helps any. It's not exactly what you're trying to get at, but it will tell you their session, when they logged in, how long they were in. So now, again, turning it back over to you as a group, we've talked about what alignment sets you'd like to use, but I'd also like to gather some information from you on how you would be using the alignments, if you would. And if you're not, that's okay too, particularly since those reports are not functioning. Let's imagine that the reports work, and you can pull all of that data course by course and have the instructors give you information on how these alignments are working in their courses. What I'd like to know is, would you be using these for accreditation, for certification for individual students? Are you looking to maybe make this part of an overall degree completion expectation, that you have reached mastery on some of these outcomes? Would you be looking at, do you want to have alignments for a professional organization that you're involved in and be able to distribute those packages to others at other institutions? Or are you really focused on within NIU and the students at NIU? So I'll give you all time to type those in, because as I said, as we investigate how to make these easier to develop, we want to know much more about how you would be using them and what sort of functionality you would want out of that. Besides, as I said, the reports that we're trying to fix. Jenny, that's very honest. I would use this to make Carrie happy. your internal assessment coordinator. It may be easier to track than live text. I haven't looked at the assessment side of live text. I've only used it from a student perspective. So I'm not entirely sure how that works. But the key to this one that I think is different from live text is right now in Blackboard, these would be on a course-by-course basis. So if an instructor creates the alignments within their own course, they also are responsible then for reporting that data back. It would be possible to add Carrie or another departmental individual into the courses to pull the data, but there is no way with the way that NIU has this licensed for someone to pull information from multiple courses at once, if that makes sense. There is another piece of Blackboard that we could license that we do not, that would allow that. But right now with this new alignments tool, it would be a course by course. Okay, so Carrie and Teresa both are reporting. It would be primarily for reporting, accreditation, and being able to show student performance based on that. Deb, I have to admit to being a little confused about the separation. I was under the impression that it is Blackboard Analytics. I have recently learned that Blackboard still has their outcomes system. So it may be analytics, it may be outcomes. I would need to do more research on that. Again, I see a few more of you still typing, so I'll wait and see that come in. Yeah, Deb, I agree. We'd have to, if that is something that someone on campus is interested in and there's money available, and that's always the if, we would need to work with someone from Blackboard, I think, in order to determine what solution would meet those needs. But right now, I'm really excited even about this course-by-course tool, which I like Damon's point as well then, that he could use the alignments to improve his own courses and make sure that what he's teaching is aligned with the student performance standards. And looking at the data in order to support and find areas that the course can be improved in. I agree, and I think that's another great use of this tool. More than the analytical accreditation perspective, I would love to see faculty across campus using this in order to really show their own worth and to show that the tool is meeting the standards that they've set forth that their course will actually cover. Jenny, you mentioned rubrics. You feel as though it gives more autonomy to instructors to be able to input themselves and change rubrics. When you use the rubrics, you want to know if you can keep rubrics consistent across semesters. So once you've created a rubric in your Blackboard course, you have one of two options. You can do a course copy from one semester to the next in order to copy the rubric and the other contents from one course to another. But you can also export a rubric once you've created it. And so if you create the rubric and then export it, you can import that into another course as well. And I think that's a great tool for faculty who may be working together and sharing their rubrics. If you created it once, you can export it and provide it to others teaching in the same department so they can import that rubric and use it themselves. Teresa, yes, reports. I think reports of any sort are beneficial when we're doing program review or assessment reporting. The more data you can collect and get your hands on, the easier that process is. Absolutely. Any other comments or questions? Damon and Deb both look like they're working on something, so I'll give you some time still. I'm not in a hurry. Deb, yes, I'm not entirely sure what would cause that to happen. She says that she's used the rubrics but found that they sometimes reorder the columns differently than what she originally drafts. If you see that happening, I would highly encourage you to report that to the help desk here at NIU. They can look at it, or they can also work with Blackboard to see if there's a known issue or something like that that could be causing the problem. Jenny, the IPTS. I'm going to go back into the app share here for just a second so that we can forgive my email for a moment while I find Blackboard again. The IPTS, those are the Illinois Professional Teaching Standards, I think you mean, are from 2002, and you say that those are older ones. When did the new ones come out? Do you happen to know? (2010) Okay, that's interesting because I believe these were made available in 2011. I think it was when Blackboard put these together. But we can definitely look into seeing if those have been updated and if they are making those available. Because, as I said, Blackboard works with the states in order to put those together. They may have missed that there were new ones, but we can definitely look into that. Okay, maybe 2010 you think might be more general versus these that are subject specific. Okay. Because I don't know, I can look into it too and see if maybe there are general ones that are not showing up as a goal set. They may have shown up though within the overall list. It's funny how they're structured sometimes. To see how these are put together. Let's see if I look at the standards. No, those are still subject specific, it looks like. I'll do some investigating and work with you maybe to see if we can find, they might be in here. I'm just scrolling quickly, looking at that right column to see what content is listed. And it's looking like they're all the subject specific from 2002. Okay, so that makes a lot of sense, Carrie. Thank you for pointing out that the 2010 ones are probably more general. Okay, we'll look into that. And Damon, would these be useful for data collection within the 1219 workshop on Gagne's 9 elements of instruction? I would encourage you, Janet Geeson is the one who will be offering that workshop, and she is actually currently in the session here. So she knows all about what that session will cover and now knows all about the alignments as well. So I'm going to table that question until that workshop for you, and maybe you and Janet can discuss that during the December 19th workshop on Gagne's 9 elements. Janet says okay, so she's ready to work on it. Okay, I'm going to close down the application share again and go back to the slides. I do want to point out that we have a new web page dedicated to the alignments on Blackboard, on Teaching with Blackboard, rather. So it's niu.edu/Blackboard. And then if you look under the Assessing Learners area, there is a Goals and Alignments menu item. Or you can use this address directly. Other than that, I'll pause for a few more questions. We have some time. Teresa, did you say the Blackboard admin would work with accreditation groups to upload standards? We can. We're going to maybe hold off just a little bit because we're trying to develop maybe over the holiday break to see what, if there would be a possibility of putting together some sort of a web-based tool that you could use in order to build the standards out a little bit easier for both you and for him. That way you know that they're correct and the admin doesn't have to copy and paste hundreds of standards. But if you're really interested in having some sort of a pilot or a trial in the spring, let me know and we can work with you beyond that. We definitely want to, I think, look at the possibilities that this tool affords and try that out. Deb, I can't tell you about additional costs. As far as I know, there wouldn't be any, but that would be within ITS's jurisdiction and, of course, subject to change. But as far as I know, we have no plans, they have no plans to include any cost for this. We just don't want to, we just want to limit it and make sure that we're working with individuals who are, of course, very serious about implementing these and making it worth the time for the development. However, as I said, I don't expect there to currently be additional cost. Yes, if they were, when you run the report, I will say you can, as you run the report, I do know you get a PDF option or an Excel document. You can actually get a spreadsheet. So I would imagine from the spreadsheet, it would be easier to aggregate the data. You'd have an editable copy of the data that way that might be easier to copy and paste into a single document somehow. There would be an additional cost to the university, certainly, if we went with one of the more advanced Blackboard tools. I have no idea how that would be covered currently, but those additional tools would require additional licenses that we don't currently have. Okay, Teresa and Damon and Deb, lots and lots of questions. Keep them coming. Okay, if possible, Teresa, you're interested in 1 or 2 courses as a pilot. Absolutely. We will make that happen then. And Teresa, remind me which standards were you interested in looking at? I'll make a note of it and make that a priority to take a look at. Okay, great. Okay. And if you have a link to that, you can email it to me and I'll get people involved. Thank you all so much for joining me. I'm going to move forward just a little bit, but feel free to keep sending me questions. If you need to contact me for any reason, here is my information. Email is usually the best to get a hold of me, but we can work on the phone or other methods if you'd like. I'm going to stop the recording. Thank you everyone who joined us online.